You are streaming?
We are streaming. All right, welcome. So, if you tuned in at 7 p.m. for our human consciousness meditation, welcome. This being Monday is also the night of Toltec discussions with Golden Eagle. That is I. And after our meditation, please, I invite you to stay and watch and participate in the online discussion. We have a chat window on YouTube. It's challenging to get comments on Facebook, although our outstanding tech wizard might be able to manage both periodically. I recommend YouTube because that's easier to see and use the chat. So, without further ado, the human consciousness meditation is uploading new, better, more accurate software for you to download and the whole world to download into their brains to save humanity. So let's get started. Sit comfortably. Breathe deeply. Activate your system of subtle energy and fill the space between your hands with energy. In that energy field, envision our planet Earth surrounded by a glowing pink consciousness field to which we send the following messages. God lives. Love is the answer. We are all one. Again. God lives. Love is the answer. We are all one. God lives. Love is the answer. And we are all one. Wherever you are in the world, at your equivalent of 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Pacific time on the west coast of North America, I invite you to participate in this. Sometimes you might be able to log in live, sometimes perhaps not. It's a simple meditation. There's enough posted that you can now hopefully have it memorized quickly. It is extremely powerful. It has an effect. We are upgrading the consciousness of humanity with this technique. If you can tune in live, we love that. If you cannot, just do it on your own. And feel the effect coming back to you. Yeah, I guess just right there. And I'll have to fight Mina for it.
You fixed your collar, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. When you have a lovely bride who is a Tony Award-winning fashion designer, these things matter. And she's really good. So, ow, ow, ow.
I know, it's not ready for you to drink.
Ah.
The way it was set over there.
Okay. So, you're here. And today's subject is an incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. And there are so many things to say about this. We might be here till midnight tonight. We could. We absolutely, positively could. What you folks are missing at home is just beyond arm's reach here is our beautiful little kitty cat, Seat Lamina.
She knows you're talking about her.
Yeah, she knows we're talking about her. So she always likes to hang around, gets in the way of, we stack up spiritual books to read, and we walk away for 5 minutes to get our water, and we come back and she's sitting on top of the stack of books. That's her way of absorbing the knowledge. So if we could ever just get it out of her, she probably has all the secrets to the universe. So, an incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. What do we mean by that? Before we get into it, is there anybody online yet?
No one is online. We have absolutely no one. Oh, no, here's a few people.
There's a few people online. Okay.
So this is the YouTube chat.
Okay.
We have Mohadib.
Wadib. Welcome.
Patty C.
Patty C.
Aaron Eaton.
Aaron E.
Dennis Brown.
Dennis Brown.
George G.
George G. Welcome.
Little Eagle.
Little Eagle is here.
Lonnie Nelson.
Lonnie.
Yeah. And Heidi Porter.
Heidi, welcome. She said she might be late today. And she's on time.
Yay.
Yay for her.
And Will Rolling.
Mr. William Rowling. Hey, Will. Did you ever get on Facebook to see what I posted for you?
Must be good, Will.
Must be. Okay, well, who knows? Maybe we'll get a few more of the SoCal crew on here shortly.
I don't see anyone following on Facebook at this time, but there's been a welcome message left for that.
Okay, good. An incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. Do you know why?
Well, if you went to all the trouble to incarnate, you wouldn't want to waste it, right?
Yeah, because it takes a long time to plan an incarnation. An incarnation on Earth is even harder than incarnations in other planets. This is like a university with a really tough entrance requirement, and not everybody gets in. So some of the reasons, if not most of the reasons why that is the case, I am discussing in my new book, which went to the printer today. Woohoo!
Woohoo!
So, Handbook for the Recently Incarnated has begun the printing process. Some of you have pre-ordered copies, and some of you may yet order pre-ordered copies, and it's on its way. I put a Facebook post, so if you don't read Facebook, you missed it. Oh, that's good.
Is it?
New tea, a new yerba mate blend. It's wonderful. And so tonight's subject matter and the fact that today is the day of going to print are obviously connected. I could pretend it was a coincidence, but I don't believe in coincidences, and neither do you. So yeah, Handbook for the Recently Incarnated and an incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. Those themes connected by your incarnation. It takes time and planning and effort to create an incarnation. There has to be an intent. There has to be things you plan on learning and doing. You have to plan what growth opportunities you are seeking. So, and a lot of that is on you. When you're up there in the spirit lands, planning your incarnation is, okay, so you kind of messed up that last one. So what are you going to do different this time? Well, if you can't answer that, it's like, okay, come back and get in line again when you've got that figured out. And then once you figure out what you want to do, then the series planning begins. intents. And it might take you a while to plan your intents. Then you have to plan when and where you will be born, to whom. You have to choose your parents. You have to put all that together in in such a way that the astrological forces that affect this planet are as aligned in your favor as much as possible. You know, it's hard enough to do this. If every possible force of the universe was working against you, it's sort of like, yeah, what's the point, right?
So it's okay to dance naked in the forest?
Is that your intent?
No, that's to add energy to my intent.
Oh, okay. Dancing naked in the forest, I highly recommend. Um, but if you're doing it in a tent, you're not in the forest. You said an intent.
It is Beltane, by the way.
Yes, tomorrow.
No.
Today? It's today. Okay.
Yeah, it was early this year.
Should have been late because of the leap year.
Well, it was on the 19th. Where are we? So the equinox in March was March 19th instead of the 21st.
Yeah, I see. Okay, you're right.
And then
I went the wrong way.
And then summer solstice is like the 21st, so that it's elongated both directions, and it has to be halfway in between.
Yeah. Okay.
I counted it myself.
You counted it yourself. See, she can do math. Don't ever let her tell you she can't. She likes to pretend to be this right-brained artist, which she is a really good one. And she teaches art well, too. Because if you saw online the picture of the forthcoming cover of Handbook for the Recently Incarnated, I was able to create that such as it is because of her instruction. And it came out looking a lot like the visions I've had pertaining to that picture. But if you want to know what that represents, you have to read the book.
I posted the link on both blogs.
Oh, good. Yeah. So there's a lot of work. You have lessons to accomplish, you have tasks to accomplish, and then you start working with your mission planner. You lay it all out. Okay, well, if we time it different this, and then you put influences, you plant subliminal messages in your superconscious that show up as a drive, a force that comes from within you, and you don't know why, but you have to go do things. You have to be good at math. You have to be good at art. If you can do both at the same time, then you're onto something. You have to go to Florida and be a rocket scientist at the Space Center. Whatever it is that you are absolutely positively driven to do, probably because you planted the subliminal message in your superconscious so that at the right time it would activate and you'd go, I think I'm going to go do that over there. But what about this? It's shiny. No, we're doing that. Then the time comes, you go through the thorough briefing to review all of this, and then you incarnate. And your mission planner, your chief mission planner, becomes known by another name, which is your holy guardian angel. And I actually looked for the picture today and I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it in my pictures, and I know I've downloaded it before, and I couldn't find it online. It's a picture of a statue of an angel doing this. And I think when we're young, especially when we're young, our angels do that a lot. They're like, ugh, not this again.
All that stuff is copyright protected now. We can't get a hold of the Shutterstock owns it. You have to pay for it.
Well, anyway, I'll have to draw my own now that I know how to draw somewhat. You incarnate. It probably spent years to decades getting ready for each incarnation. It might be less time. There's some who say, oh, 49 days and by then you reincarnate. But I don't think so. Not in my experience. It can go that fast if you're less picky, but if you're on a mission, if you just want a body, I mean, yeah, you can get a body. If you want a mission and we're really doing the work, it takes a while to plan it and get it all figured out. Because of that's reason number one of why you don't want to waste it. Is first, it takes a long time to get ready for a mission. Two, it takes a long time to be qualified to be allowed to do them, even start the planning process. So that really should have come first. You got to get qualified. It's sort of like buying a house, right? First, you got to get qualified. Then you got to do the planning, right? And then because you're applying to Earth, University Earth, there's a waiting list. Right now, I'm told it's in the hundreds of millions. Yeah, there's 7.8 billion on the Earth right now, but there's, probably close to 1 billion people waiting. They want in, and they want in now because of all the things that are going on Earth now and in the relatively near future. And so they're just waiting. And some of them might get in, some of them might not. So Earth has, for a variety of reasons explained in the handbook, Earth has unique features. That's why we're here. And we came here with great expectations for ourselves, our mission planner, and the whole universe. So for that reason, or those several reasons, those are the reasons so far. You don't want to waste this opportunity. The way things work is the Earth is going through a series of frequency windows. And we just have entered the really big up spiral frequency window. So it's sort of like we go around, and then the next time around we go whoop, and then we go around again, and whoop, and we go around again. So we're in this whoop phase, and you got to get the sound effect right, whoop, like that. And that's where we're at, right? This is the big deal right here. And if you don't make it during this whoop phase, you might have to wait another 24,000 years to the beginning of the next 2,000-year phase that we just are ending to get ready to come back. I'm not waiting 24,000 years. I'm doing my mission now. That's what I'm doing. So where Earth's at in its life cycle is another reason why you may not get an opportunity like this again for a really, really long time. Yeah.
That sentiment is also expressed in the ABD about an unconscious rebirth now at this point. More than likely will put you in, the brute dimension, one of the lower dimensions, and I mean, you may never get out of that.
Well, you probably will, because we all probably did at least one lifetime there. But we're going to talk about that in a minute. The ABD, for those who may be unaware, because I think the people who are watching live have all heard of the ABD and know that it stands for the American Book of the Dead. But there could be people tuning in later who go, what the heck is an ABD? American Book of the Dead is a modern shamanic reinterpretation of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which describes our journey in the period of time between incarnations. We're all familiar in Western culture with birth, life, and death. And this is actually one of the great points of contention between religious and spiritual traditions, right? Is the age-old one lifetime versus reincarnation question. For those of you who believe that we only have one incarnation, all the more reason to not waste it, right? If this is your one and only chance, you darn well better do it right. Yes? So this argument is relatively modern, the one incarnation versus many. It's only been in roughly the last 1700 years that this has even been up for discussion. Because prior to that, pretty much every spiritual system, the vast, vast majority of them, knew that we had multiple incarnations. There's evidence, some of the evidence is contradictory, that early Christianity taught multiple incarnations. There's bits and pieces in the surviving scriptures, keeping in mind that there was a lot that was thrown out. I think your cat's out of control. You've got your squirt gun down there. So, when they're good, they're her cats. When they're bad, apparently they're my cats. So yeah, this has only been an issue when certain major religions, based in the Vatican City, surrounded by Italy, decided they wanted to water down religious thought to take power from the people. That was actually a very coldly calculated decision on the part of that church. To say, no, we don't want people knowing this. We don't want people having this power. We want the power ourselves. We want them to think that we have the power ourselves. And so they did things. They burned books that had anything to do with spirituality. They burned books that painted the true history of primarily Europe. And they wrote complete fabrications and put them in libraries all over Europe. And now they're revered as, oh, this is the great history by so-and-so. They stamped out literacy. They stamped out healers and people of knowledge of anything, really. And they produced a time in Europe that we now call the Dark Ages. And it wasn't because they didn't have lights, because they still had firelight and oil lamps, but it was dark because of the lack of divine light and the lack of knowledge in most of Europe.
It was the loss of knowledge. It was the fact that we just came out of a golden age of knowledge, of sciences, from what?
But you're...
No, I'm done. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Plus, I didn't put my makeup on.
Okay.
Question from Dennis. He
Yes,
says,
sir.
how does the time frame relate to the lack of time? So I'm not sure what he's referring to, but I'm thinking the 24,000 years. So.
Yeah, if you could explain that. Read the question again.
How does the time frame relate to the lack of time?
Oh, I know what he's asking. Humanity has been going for a long time. Hundreds of thousands to millions of years. So, almost geological time. You know, we're not quite as old as the rocks. Or as old as dirt. I may look like it, but thinking I'm just an old man, that's your first mistake. So, in the 1700 years or so since that church that shall remain nameless Catholic started squelching things. That's a really short period of time compared to all of this, right? So this is one time frame I'm talking about, is this argument that has gone on has been done to take away from you the true knowledge of karma and reincarnation and the cycle of life. And that 26,000 year cycle is divided into 12 roughly equally spaced segments that we call an aeon, which are about 2,100 years and change long. Each one has an energy. So the people who aren't ready to transition really into this next energy era, the age of Aquarius, means basically it's like you took your class, your series of incarnations in this Piscean era, and if you don't graduate, it's sort of like, well, I'm in the third grade, I don't get to go on to fourth grade, so that means I have to go back to third grade and redo the Piscean age again. But the Piscean age won't come around again for another 24,000 years. So I think that answers your question. If not, please clarify.
Jean Louise is on this.
Jean Louise is here.
And there was I'm still learning how to check the chat on Facebook. There was a Marianne Carantino.
Oh yeah, hi Marianne.
Miss Liddy, and we have Moab Deeb in both places, and then Darla Gibson.
My cousin. Hello, cuz. I don't know how you managed to stumble into this, but you did, so welcome, all of you. So I think I answered Mr. Brown's question. So this...
Here's the other. He says, wondering about the thought that time does not exist on the other side of the veil.
It's the higher dimensions. Time is different. Time is actually different in this dimension, at least different than you've been taught, especially by physicists. Time is actually the fourth spatial dimension. We just don't have the nervous system available to us yet to be able to travel in the negative t direction. I think that's what... So anyway, yeah, time is different. So when we step out of this dimension and we step back, that's what gives us the ability to review our life and say, how'd I do? Oh, shoot. I didn't even come close to my incarnation's goal, my true will, my intent, my divine destiny. So when you look at all of those things, what you learn from looking at all these different spiritual systems is we come to Earth for a purpose, a mission. If we get our act together, you might accomplish that purpose in one lifetime. Then you might be given an opportunity to graduate, go somewhere else, or to go up in the higher planes and work there for a while. Or you might make a conscious choice to come back down here and do it again on a new mission. If you're like most people, you come to Earth and you experience life very much akin to the movie Groundhog Day. You groundhog it in the bad way, where you mess everything up and over and over and over and over again. In the movie, it's portrayed as being the same exact lifetime over and over again, or the same day over and over again. And if you watch carefully in that movie, you'll notice that he lives 9 months of the same day over and over and over again. So, gee, 9 months. I wonder where they came up with that number.
I'm just wondering when you want me to insert questions or not.
Yeah, if you got a question, just give me a hand.
Okay. So, Jean Louise asks, could you say more about dimension? Is that something someone can experience in meditation?
Dimension.
Mm-hmm.
Or dementia. Because I experience that all the time. Okay, dimensions are used very specifically in terms of mathematics and physics. They basically mean, okay, so from a standpoint of math and geometry, a straight line is one dimension. A plane, like a flat square table that you can draw into x and y coordinates, that would be a two-dimensional. There's length and width, right? Then if you add height, that's 3 dimensions. If you add time, that's 4 dimensions, but it's a spatial dimension. And when you learn particular types of meditation, you see that plainly. That's an advanced meditation. So that's one mathematical definition. And there can be more. And there's math for as many dimensions as you want to put together. Physics, by the standard of the preponderance of evidence, seems to indicate that there are 19 dimensions to the universe. At least 19 dimensions so far. Interestingly enough, there are 19 quarks that make up matter. Quarks are made up of strings, and then strings seem to be, at least according to the math we have now, the single most fundamental structural unit to make up what we call physical matter. And then the quarks combine in different ways to produce all the other subatomic particles we're familiar with. Electrons, protons, neutrons, and so forth. So when we meditate, we are learning ways of piercing that veil. The veil between this dimension and the others. And it's usually a stepwise process. First we learn to get into the next dimension or plane of reality, called the etheric, and the next one up is the astral, and the next one up is the mental, and the one above that is called the causal, and then there's more. So learning those skills, that's basically what a shaman does. Other people can do it as well. You can learn to meditate, and you can learn to inhabit your bodies that exist on these other planes with the consciousness from this plane, and then astral travel is one result of that. Remote viewing is another result of that. I think it was Blavatsky, she called these the unseen planes. And these unseen planes, these unseen dimensions, have beings that live in them, just like we live here. And they're sometimes called the unseen dwellers, the dweller on the. There's a term she used, and it's escaping. Ask Aaron. He'll do it. Aaron, what's that term she called for the
It's not
unseen?
the dweller on the threshold.
No, dweller on the threshold is another term that corresponds with our shadow self.
Now, she specifically apparently was talking about negative T dimension. She said that when you spoke about the fourth dimension, that
Oh, okay,
spatial dimension, that
okay.
answered a question. But
You can travel in the negative T dimension. That's one thing that we teach. In the astral, we when you get into the advanced shamanic training, that's something we teach. Taking your physical body and doing time travel. There's an allusion to this in the Star Trek franchise, where they have what they call the temporal prime directive, which is based on the standard mundane prime directive, which is if you go visit a planet and you find out that they are a primitive culture, meaning they haven't developed warp drive engines yet, the ability to travel faster than light, then you're not allowed to interface with them and give them new technology. They have to lift themselves up by their own bootstraps and get to a certain level, and then say, okay, now you're in the club, we can talk and trade knowledge. So that's the standard prime directive. But the temporal prime directive is you're not allowed to go back in time and change things. So there's not a lot written about this in most of the spiritual literature. I actually I picked up a book a year or two ago about, it's called The Yoga of Time Travel, and I'm about to start reading it. But I believe, this is my personal opinion, based on a general sense of things that I get, is that we on this plane, at least on this planet, are operating under a form of temporal prime directive. If we raise our culture up high enough to do the temporal equivalent of learning warp drive, to borrow the concept from Star Trek, we may get to a point where we can have more latitude to go back and forth in time. You know, there's that, what's that series of movies? Back to the Future. There's a whole series of Back to the Future movies where the bad guy took a book of sports results back in time, gave it to himself so he could start betting on and winning all the time, and owned Las Vegas practically, and goes forward in time. But in the end, that individual wiped himself out of the timeline. Right? He disappeared.
that character was modeled after Donald Trump. Maybe it will be true.
Yeah. So many things to say about that.
And that was back in the mid '80s. We knew then.
Even the Simpsons way back when made jokes about him running for president. So I hope that answers your question, Jean Louise.
Yes, she said thank you.
The whole goal is to, well, we're talking about, we just barely talked about one lifetime versus multiple. All that I will say is that every spiritual tradition on the face of the earth, at least all the ones I've heard of, including early Christianity, acknowledged reincarnation and the law of karma. It's only been in the last 1700 years where certain religious branches of Christianity have said, no, that doesn't happen. They acknowledge it can happen for some of the prophets. They can come back multiple times, but you know, us common folk, no, we can't do it. So the whole point of the incarnations, this is yet another major reason why you need to not waste this opportunity, is we exist not just as this physical body. Ow. I just hit myself with my monster ring. We also have an eternal essence, our essential self. There's also an intermediate structure for each lifetime called a higher self, which is working on the higher planes. That's the part of us that helps coordinate the forces that we then try to bring down into manifestation here. But that essential self, what we're trying to do, I've mentioned this before in some discussions, either late last year or early this year, it's all a blur. Notice how the last few months is just a blur. Again, that comes back to our perception of time and the fact that time has been erroneously defined here on Earth for quite some time. There was, what was that line? One of the Star Trek movies, I think it was First Contact, was one where they went back in time because the Borg went back in time and they were going to wipe out humanity. And there was a line Counselor Deanna Troi said about time. We don't have the time to do this because we don't have, it was good. I wish I could remember it. Sorry. Look it up. Go watch First Contact. It's a good movie. Where were we? What were we on?
We had the questions about dimensions and
oh, so, yeah, the essential self. Thank you. Somebody up there told me. The evolution of humanity has a purpose. Evolution is not what you've been told about in school, but I tell you exactly what it is in the book, Handbook for the Recently Incarnated. This show tonight, of course, is kind of allusion to that book, which went to print today. So I'll have copies in about a week for those of you who prepay and get an autographed copy. So our human evolution requires us to use the energetic separation between this plane and the higher planes as a form of voltage to drive a current, and that current drives the evolution of our essential self. And to facilitate that, it also drives the evolution of the human form. And there's a lot more evolution that can happen to each individual in a single incarnation than we previously used to think. Modern biologists look down on Charles Darwin now because some of what he wrote about has been proven to not be entirely correct. Well, first off, he did his research almost 200 years ago now. And there's been almost 200 years of additional scientific and biological and discoveries and archaeological discoveries and paleontological discoveries where people dig up more fossils. I mean, the whole Burgess Shale thing, if you know what that is, that came way after, that was a 20th century discovery up in Canada. And so, but what Charles Darwin documented, which was based on the data he had at the time, is that the form of physical life appears to change over time and that environmental factors can play a role in that. And in those basic fundamentals, he was right. Religionists like to say, no, it can't. And then there's a whole discussion of that argument. So in the handbook, I'm not going to repeat it here, but I give you the exact answer of what human evolution is, how it works, what it's for, and what I just told you is a teaser. But one of the reasons that we all fought to get in line to be here on Earth at this point in time is because during this little move up that the planet Earth is going through right now, we can make that evolution go even faster than it would otherwise. So using advanced spiritual techniques that have been held secret for a long time, and in some ways kind of still are, you have to be lucky enough to find a shaman or an esoteric school of some sort who has the secrets and can teach them to you. And then finding the school is hard. Finding a real teacher is hard. Finding, or then, but I know what I'm trying to say. Finding the school and the teacher is hard, but once you do, that process of having found the school and the teacher seems really, really easy compared to the work you have to do if you want to take advantage of that opportunity. So an esoteric school is a major work opportunity where you drastically speed up your process of personal growth and evolution, and thereby you speed up your contribution to the growth and evolution of humanity. And that's really the main thing for why an incarnation is a terrible thing to waste. You go to all this trouble to be down here, and the main focus of being down here isn't even down here. It's up there in those higher frequency unseen planes where your essential self is dwelling, and that's your target of evolution, is that. And your ability to work and learn how to transcend the planes and to consciously exist on all these planes at the same time, to be aware of what you're doing on the etheric and the astral and higher planes while you're still doing your work here, that's crucial. It requires work. And most of human culture these days has been trained to not want to do work. Most of human culture has been trained to become, dare I say it, lazy.
Say it's not so.
I would, but I'd be lying. So, human evolution is not what the religionists say, it's not what the scientists say. But if you want to verify what I've told you, you can do that. Every single thing I'm telling you in all these discussions, you can very simply verify by just tapping into the higher planes yourself. This is a process we call going direct. You don't need a priest, you don't need a guru, you don't need a shaman to be able to do all this. The learning curve, however, is greatly shortened if you study with a legitimate guru or shaman. Guru is a very specific term for the name of a spiritual teacher in the Hindu and Ayurvedic traditions from India. Might be more than just Hindu. I think it's just the Indian subcontinent as a whole. But yeah, you can learn it. You can do it. And any religion that tells you, no, you can't, is a false religion. That's life moving west, gang. If they say, oh no, you can only get answers from God if you go to the priest and you pay your money and he sprinkles you with holy water and you only get to do that once a year, yes, that's bunk. Not only can you, but you should. There are actually legitimate religions out there telling you not only is it possible, but you have a responsibility to do it. And that's what I'm telling you. And part of what esoteric schools and shamans have been doing, at least for 35,000 years on this planet, is trying to teach people how to do that. All the ones that don't run away screaming when the work starts. And every spiritual teacher who's been in business more than a month probably had students run away screaming. because the work's hard. Well, you said it was going to be hard, but I didn't know it was going to be that hard. You mean you want me to work all the time? Yeah.
Not just on Sunday.
Not just on Sunday for an hour. And you don't get time off while you're asleep, because then you go into dreaming and you keep working. And in especially most shamanic traditions, and especially the Toltec, we are aware of the reality that the dreaming is not an activity you do. The dreaming is a place your consciousness goes to do work, because we are existing and working on multiple planes of reality all at the same time. And there's a goal for that, and the goal I talk about in the book. You want to know why we're doing all this? Go read the book.
It's the handbook.
The Handbook for the Recently Incarnated. So there's a lot of things going on in the world right now. Many of them are distractions, intended to keep you from doing this work, quite frankly. Either they're tending to distract you by something shiny over here, or they're intended to distract you with something fearful over here. The goal is to keep you from going direct. That's what the world situation today is really all about. That's what the modern Hollywood entertainment industry has become, is one major distraction after another. That's why the evening news is 90% entertainment. I remember the year was 1987, so this wasn't just last century, this was last millennium, right? 1987, I moved from Florida to the greater Los Angeles area. You know, I had been working in the upper echelons of the U.S. space program at Kennedy Space Center. I had traveled to a lot of major cities around the country as part of that work. I was educated. I had a master's degree at the time. I'd been to very good schools, private schools, both undergrad and my graduate school. I worked with astronauts and generals and other rocket scientists who had literally invented the U.S. space program. So I wasn't a stupid guy, and didn't just fall off the turnip truck from the farm when I rolled into L.A. But when I got to L.A., 1987, remember, I was shocked and horrified that the evening news was 90% entertainment. I didn't really appreciate at the time that the entertainment industry dominated so much of the local economy there. But because the entertainment industry is also the news industry, that's when I started to really realize that the evening news isn't news. From beginning to end, it's all scripted. And you can see that now even more than ever. There's videos that go around documenting in cities all over the country, newscasters reading the same script, right? So it's scripted. It was back then, I just didn't know it. Walter Cronkite, who had that kind, grandfatherly, newsy approach, his was all scripted. But the entertainment industry, literally, the movies and who's doing what and who's dating whom and who just bought a new mansion or a car or whatever, that was the evening news. Oh yeah, something happened in the Middle East. Oh yeah, Congress did something. But hey, shiny, right? Who had the latest boob job? Boy, that camera, I had just charged it up. I'm going to have to find a new battery for it. It's down to 20% already, and it was 78 when we started.
On your cell phone?
On my cell phone. Yeah. Hang on, guys. I gotta poke myself in the face here. Wow. So, entertainment industry is a distraction, and it's intended to be. Professional sports are a distraction, and they're intended to be. The National Football League is a multi-billion-dollar per year venture. It's tax exempt. Now explain that one to me. I mean, that's as bad as oil companies turning multi-billion-dollar profits and then getting kickbacks from the government. But the NFL is tax exempt. I don't know about the other pro sports. And the reason is entertainment. It's designed to keep the masses distracted. This was very ably described in George Orwell's book, 1984. Give them beer and give them football, and you can do whatever you want. You know, they won't care. That's a rough paraphrasing of Orwell's quote. So all of those things are intended to distract you from learning how to go direct and then accomplishing your true will, your divine purpose, because humanity as a whole has a purpose, you as an individual have a purpose, and your main goal in life is to figure out what it is and do it. The argument about whether reincarnation is real or whether the one lifetime model is real is really almost irrelevant in some ways, up to a point, because in either case the answer is do your true will, do what you came here to do. Where it stops being irrelevant, the one lifetime model stops being irrelevant, is when you die, as your biological machine will. And your consciousness, your eternal essence, survives that. And then it's what happens in that in-between space, which Western culture no longer even has a term for, right? We have birth, life, death, and then we don't know. Question.
Well, some Christian scripture does reference purgatory and paradise.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that most people think, oh, you're going to be judged right away and go to hell or heaven, when in fact there would have to be a whole another resurrection and all that before any of that would happen, and that those people have a chance then in those spaces to learn and grow.
Right, and that's the space, which is a very crude, in my opinion, is a very crude definition of aspects of the Bardos, where you can sit it out or you can get back in the game. So in the American Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead Revisited, the goal is to step into the clear light and attain an existence on a higher plane and get off the karmic cycle. That's what I think the Christians would call paradise. Going through the Bardos is what I think they would call purgatory. And if you stepped out, that's where you get to do your careful planning of your next incarnation. You got to step out of that downward spiral through the Bardos if you're going to have a chance to really plan in Incarnation. So most people who are in the work, a lot of them, I think, and by work we are referring to the spiritual work, the higher level spiritual work. Most of them have done that. I think some of us got blackmailed. I've been blackmailed a number of times in this lifetime where I just wanted to go be the mad scientist in the corner in my lab all by myself, or I wanted to go be the hermit in the woods, and somebody blackmails me into doing something else. And in every case, it was for my own good. All the jobs I was blackmailed into taking that I didn't want proved to be really, really crucial for my true will. Gain skills, gain knowledge, gain exposure in ways that I would not have otherwise. So it's almost like my higher self, my eternal essence was, and my holy guardian angel, giving credit where credit is due, was really kind of helping guide things along. Because in each case, I could have said no. And I didn't say no. Because I could have quit the companies I worked for.
It's not really blackmail. It's strongly suggesting.
Well, in one case, probably the most significant, but not the only one, was I had literally found my perfect dream job. I was sent to a lab all by myself and told, you are going to build a satellite all by yourself. You get one technician you can bring in for soldering and things like that, but you're going to design it, you're going to build it, you're going to launch it all by yourself. It's like, it's a mad scientist. That's like totally cool, right? I had it for a month, and then some other bigwig manager found me. Where did so-and-so disappear? Where did Arlen go? So they found me. They came over to my lab. I was drawing and drilling and making I think I was making a rack that was going to hold a piece of equipment that I was going to use for, I don't even remember what now. I said, oh no, you don't get to have this job. I've already got it. Get the heck out. There's the door. Well, no. You're going to come over to this other project and be the head manager. And it was a project I did not want to work on. I didn't like the people. I didn't like the project. Well, I'm afraid that you either come over and be the manager, or we're going to move you over there and you're going to work for a total idiot. And you won't get the promotion. And you'll do the same work. Because we all know the idiot can. It's just you'll be working for the idiot. And that's the only job the company will let you have right now. So it's either that or quit. So I, of course, took the promotion, took the bigwig job, and it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. So yeah, I allowed the blackmail to happen. But yeah, there's part of me that just really wanted to be that hermit in the scientist lab all by myself. Go away and don't bother me. But that's the kind of planning that happens. And then you have to listen to your holy guardian angel. I mean, you guys spent a lot of time together planning this mission, so you might as well take advantage of the opportunity. We got any questions or comments? It's been kind of quiet online.
Jean Louise asks, going back to the NFL conversation, is if the NFL is tax exempt, does that mean that the professionals don't pay taxes?
Oh no, they do. The individual players have been known, when they get to that free agency point, there's a lot of players who refuse to play for the teams in California because our taxes are too high. No, they're going to go here, they'll go there, they'll play, but they won't come here. And it's not just the NFL. I've heard that about, especially baseball. Baseball players don't want to play in California because your salary gets paid by the city where your team is, right? So if you're in California playing for, let's say, the Oakland A's or the California Angels or the Los Angeles Dodgers, then you pay a higher tax than going across the border and playing for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Any other questions or comments?
Just so you know, I made a random in the moment decision when we went on Facebook, and I did a what do you call it? A watch party, and I think it went live instead of just to your peeps. But there was one person on here that I wasn't sure if you actually knew them. It was a Nate Vitraro.
Really? Nate Vitaro's on?
Here he was. I don't know if he still is.
Oh, yeah. Nate and I went to naturopathic school together.
He says, "Hey, Arlen, miss you, buddy. It's great to see you."
Well, tune in more often, Nate. Yeah, he is a naturopathic physician. He was, last I heard, still in Arizona, and became a pediatrician, last I heard.
So Jennifer Wincher?
Witcher, another naturopathic friend.
And then Ms. Liv, I think I mentioned,
Yeah.
and
Hi, Olivia.
Michelle Doherty.
Oh, Michelle's here. Great.
Tiffany Chambers.
It's a Facebook friend. I don't know that I've physically met her.
Violet Flame.
I've met her.
Luke Gay.
Oh, Luke. He's our condo level 3 down under.
Way down under.
Way down under. He's in Aussie land, Australia. How's Oz these days, my friend? I take it you survived the fires last year?
And forgive me if I missed somebody. I'm just kind of scrolling through here, but there was a William Franklin joined us.
Oh, he was a former acupuncture student of mine when I taught at the acupuncture school. He's been in practice, 10 years or more now. He's probably world famous, more famous than I am.
Richard Montgomery.
Really? Wow. Hi, Richard.
I guess I hit the jackpot on your naturopathic friends.
Well, he's not an agent. He's a friend down in Reading.
Oh, okay. And then a Renee Dalali Singh.
A what?
Renee Dolly.
I'm not familiar with this individual.
Well, welcome, Renee.
Well, welcome. Yes, by all means.
And then I think I mentioned Richard. And a Jim Stanley.
Oh, I think he's one of my in one of my martial arts instructors organizations.
And Brian Keith.
The actor?
No, I don't think so. I don't think he's even still alive, is he?
I don't know.
Could be. Welcome, Brian.
If it is, great. If not, then great. You're here. Welcome.
And Dennis Godby. So.
Really, that's another naturopathic friend. He and I, this is going back eons now, 12, 13 years.
Since we have so many of your naturopathic peeps online, I'm going to give a reference to your Heal of Life, Heal of World book.
Okay, but you have to put the camera on you.
Me? Why?
Okay, I'll do it. Okay, so this new book I'm talking about is a shamanic book. Wow, this thing is just draining. I hope it, let me get this out quick because I'm down to 10%. So it's a new shamanic book about, it's called Handbook for the Recently Incarnated. And what it is it's the collection of instructions somebody should have given us when we first got to Earth. Here's how Earth works. Here's what you're here for. Here's how you go about doing your job. And your first job is to find the real job you're here to do. So this is all the stuff that I wish I'd had 50 years ago. Okay, the other book that the lovely Bonnie mentioned is the book that was published last year. It is still extremely timely, called Heal Your Life, Heal the World. It is the merger and the overlap, the little overlapping circle things you see on the internet a lot, between health and spirituality. It speaks to the principles of why we should care enough to be healthy, which is to give our vehicles an opportunity to tune into the higher planes and grasp that that concept of our true purpose, our true will. It talks about why we aren't healthy, which I refer to as the big three, the three largest causes of ill health in the world today. Oh man, decline that. I should have put that. I can't even get to the thing to make it not ring. Um, so the big three causes of ill health, which are nutrition and farming soils, which go hand in hand. It's vaccinations and it's environmental toxins. And it talks about what to do about it. So I've tied together many concepts in a very nice, neat package, including chapter 9, which is the how do you go about doing all that, especially for people who may be new to all this. So that's called Heal Your Life, Heal the World. And you can find links to it on drcagesays.org. DRCAGESAYS. drcagesays.org. So that book should be required reading for every human, in my opinion.
And it's really your collection of knowledge from your naturopathic and acupuncture career that you've put into a handbook rather than trying to see one client at a time,
Yeah.
but to help the world, not just.
Every now and then people have asked me, well, why did you retire from clinical practice? Because I was seeing one client at a time. In my peak, I was doing really well as a naturopathic practice. I was seeing 40, 50 people a week. And that still wasn't making a dent in human health. Then I graduated to doing health retreats where I was getting a couple of dozen people on a weekend and giving them all the nutrition lecture and the vitamin and essential nutrient lecture and the probiotic lecture and the detox lecture and the meditation and exercise lectures. There's like 6, 7 lectures everybody needs to get, right? If you went to naturopathic school, you know that stuff, and you've given those lectures 1,000 times if you've given them once. And so I was trying to give them to larger groups of people all at once, and that still didn't work. And I felt very called to get this book out. So that's 20 years of clinical practice as a naturopath, as an acupuncturist, in my energy medicine and energy healing work that I do. All rolled together. And so that's one of my major messages to humanity. And what I'm doing now is I'm doing a lot more with the energy medicine and human consciousness, because that's what's missing from our culture. Is not enough people are experts and talking about and doing and using the subtle energies, whether it's chi or prana or the akadwa or any other name you want to give it, and we're not doing consciousness consciously. There's a term called the collective unconscious, which I dislike. I prefer the term the collective conscious. And teaching how to proactively manipulate the human collective consciousness is, in fact, the key secret to the future of humanity if we're going to survive and have a future. So anyway, for those of you who don't usually tune in, welcome. That's a little bit about what I've been up to these last few years. Any other questions or comments online?
No.
No. My regulars have no questions. Don't make me come through that camera and smack you around a little, because you know you're supposed to have questions. We had a whole conversation last week about how to prepare for these Monday night lectures by having questions or asking them at the end. Ugh, herding cats. I've got to figure out how to put that herding cats picture up that Wadid drew me. Herding cats. And I have more cats to herd on the back porch these days.
So we're talking about not wasting our incarnation. So maybe you can give us a spoiler from your book or some off-the-cuff advice as to what might be the first step that we would look at, considering some of us are just, really considering this for the first time. that we even have an incarnation and that we have a choice as to what to do with it.
Well, a spoiler from the book. Defending your life. You know what I mean? There's a movie called Defending Your Life starring Meryl Streep and I can see his face, the guy. I want to say Albert Finney, but that's not him. It's somebody online. Please look up Defending Your Life and see who the male star is. But you die, you go before the karmic board, and you get to explain yourself.
Brooks?
Albert Brooks? Yeah, I think that's it. That's Albert. But Brooks is the last name. Thank you, whoever. Ding, ding, ding.
That was Will.
Will, of course. So you're gonna you will go through a process extremely similar to what's shown in the movie Defending Your Life. So that Defending Your Life is one of the movies I recommend. It's a real work movie. And this is sort of like when you work in a big company, you have your annual performance appraisal. And you go in and they go, well, Mr. Cage, your project was ahead of schedule, on budget, or under budget, and exceeded technical performances. You made all the other managers look bad, so we have to give you a cut and pay. I'm not making this up. I'm really not. That really happened. Well, not so much a cut and pay, but when cost of living goes up and everybody around you who did a bad job, their salaries goes up, yours kind of went down by comparison. So yeah, I got punished for making the other managers look bad. That really happened. So defending your life is why you want to embrace this concept. So read the handbook. The handbook contains instructions that when you read it, you're going to say, oh, that's why that's all messed up. Why didn't somebody tell me before? My premise is that everybody who's alive needs to get that book on their 8th birthday. 8 years old, you're old enough to make decisions. You're old enough to kind of understand the world. But if you can walk and use a lavatory successful and get the food in the mouth, not up the nose, then you can read this book. So in one of my blogs, once upon a time, I wrote about the ending of the play Romeo and Juliet. And spoiler alert, I said in the blog that, yeah, everybody dies at the end. And then I said, I'm sorry if that was a spoiler, but the play was written in the 1500s. I really thought you knew by now. Okay, so I really think you should know some of these things I'm talking about. Yeah.
So we have 2 questions.
Okay.
I'm going to read them both just because I don't know if you want to dovetail the information. Aaron states, I need to find my shadow self. And then Jean Louise Green says, I have had some great dreams lately, lots of information coming through, wondering if you could speak on the topic of how to get the most out of our dreams at some point.
Okay. An answer to Jean Louise Green, yes. I know you want more detail, but give me a second. So, yes, I can do that. We won't get to most of it tonight. So Aaron, give me what Aaron said again.
I need to find my shadow self.
Okay. Is that a question, Aaron? You want to know how?
Know that self.
Yeah. Okay, so it's kind of, I wish I knew the artist's name of that picture we used in that when we used to teach the Spiritual Essentials class.
Are you asking me?
Yeah, it was the woman with her finger up to the mirror,
Right.
and her shadow self is in the mirror.
Right.
It kind of reminds me of Alice Through the Looking Glass. The shadow self is a structure that we create in the nooks and crannies of our consciousness where we stuff all the negative things about us or all the things somebody sometime told us were negative. So for people who are watching only on Facebook, did you ever post the YouTube link in the Facebook chat
For what?
for tonight?
Yes.
Okay, so scroll back up there because I think the whatever the just post it again because this thing's going to die soon.
Okay.
And if people want to get over onto YouTube, I think they won't lose power. Or the camera's about to lose power, and that's the feed to Facebook right now. The shadow self is somebody told you you were a terrible artist, so you quit drawing. Or somebody told you were a terrible athlete, so you quit trying. There's all the things down there that maybe they're negative, maybe they're not. Maybe somebody else didn't want your competition and so convinced you to stop. Everything that is potentially negative, you know, maybe there's things about our nature from previous lives, karma we have to burn. You know, maybe we put one too many heads on pikes in our last incarnation. And so that that warrior tendency to put heads on pikes is something we had to learn to quell in this lifetime. All that can get shoved in your shadow self. And when you start climbing your consciousness up the Kabbalistic tree of life, there's a place that you will reach where you will meet your shadow self. Maybe a couple of places. But there's a first place that usually happens, and then there's another place that it will absolutely positively happen. And so if you haven't had the visions of your shadow self, just wait. He'll get around to you when you get a little further up the tree. Um, it, it, it means you still have some preliminary work to do. And the goal is not just to meet your shadow self. The goal, you know, when you do, there's a process to go through um, to place that shadow self under your conscious control. But the goal is to reach a certain place on the tree of life with your consciousness and work from there. The shadow self is a step on that path. So, just like any other skill or ability, like seeing auras or psychic abilities, the ability to see the future, to read minds, to, you know, whatever psychic shiny talent you want to fill in the blank with, those aren't the goal. Those are just epiphenomenon on the way to taking your consciousness to a certain point where you can get the skills and knowledge you need to accomplish your true will. It all comes back to that. That's what your incarnation is for. You're here to do a specific task or batch of tasks, and you're here to engage with the process of being here so you can drive your evolution of yourself and humanity and your essential self, not just yourself. And that's what you're here for. And anybody who tries to talk you out of that is either grossly misinformed or they are deliberately trying to mislead you. So I hope that answers that question. As regarding dreaming, there's a lot of things that can be done. I may do my version of a dreaming workshop later this summer. There's a lot of ways to interpret the dreams. There's a lot of ways to learn how to engage with the dreaming activities and places. So Yeah, it can be talked about. It's a big subject right now. I'm glad your dreams have improved, and the number one thing you can and should be doing is journaling that. Keep a record for the dreams. What else we got in there?
Except for now.
That's it?
Okay. Muad'Dib says that Serenity's 8th birthday is May 14th. She's a little Taurus. And will the book be here in time for her birthday?
I think so. It was ordered today, and it went. And I got the notice back that it's into the print process today, and it's expected to take about 7 days. That would put us out to the 11th, and then they ship it.
So the problem is getting it down to her once we get it.
Yeah. So that'll be, you might just have to up and drive up here. So it should be about then. Yeah. I think. So yeah, that's exciting. That is hopefully going to be a book that will help a lot of people figure out and make sense of this craziness that exists on Earth at times. Because when you take the eternal perspective, the perspective of the higher planes, you look at what this is and you go, that's a little hiccup, that's a speed bump. When I'm king, I'm going to outlaw speed bumps. But in the meantime, we got to put up with them. So don't let world situations distract you from your work. In fact, use the additional time available, and use this as motivation to really step up and do what you're here to do. And it isn't to drink beer and watch sitcoms. Unless you're one of those rare individuals whose true will is to serve as a bad example to others.
You can remind them to join us at 7 a.m., 7 p.m.
Oh yeah, let's remind them. 7 a.m., 7 p.m. The consciousness meditation for humanity here on YouTube or on Facebook. drcagesays.org, heal your life, heal the world. And then on toltecshamanicarts.org is there's a link to get the handbook for the recently incarnated. There are still opportunities to get the pre-publication deal, which is basically free shipping and an autograph. And that will be going until the first printing is sold out, and then that offer goes away. Okay, if there's no more questions, I have to tell you my usual parting words of wisdom, which is do good, avoid evil, and then we'll go offline. And I'll see hopefully you at 7 a.m.
Looks like you're still on Facebook.
Oh, Facebook. Okay, ending live video. It survived. Well, last week it went out.